Welcome into the Inside Slant here on the Sports Objective, and we're very excited to have another week of college football. And I know that a lot of us here are very excited, obviously, for many different reasons for tomorrow, but one is for the Big Ten. And right now with us, writer for the Columbus Dispatch, and I hope I get the right, is it Bill Rabinowitz?
Rabinowitz.
Rabinowitz, okay. I'll get it right before
You're not the first. That's okay.
I'm trying hard. Very excited to have Ohio State coming back, and hard to believe that the season's been rolling on and no Ohio State. How are the fans? I know you guys in Columbus are very excited.
Yeah, people here have been waiting a long time. In fact, the high school season, they're in their playoffs now. So there are a lot of people who are like, wait a minute, Ohio State couldn't play, and high school kids have been gotten through the regular season. So yeah, it's long awaited.
And the very fact that one of the things that we talked about is our team that we cover, East Carolina, has a conference mate, Cincinnati. Cincinnati could play, but yet Ohio State couldn't. And then high school football could play as well. That was very strange.
Yeah, it was. Luke Fickell, has a lot of fans here because there's Ohio State connections. And yeah, but I don't think Ryan Day and the Buckeyes really enjoyed watching UC play, although they didn't play last week, I don't think.
Right, because of the COVID outbreak.
Right.
Yeah, they're obviously playing SMU this week. We'll be talking to their play-by-play voice in just a minute. So, I know that there's big high expectations for Ohio State this year. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Ohio State felt like they should have at least beaten Clemson and got to the championship game last year. That game slipped away from them. They've been a team on a mission since then, and when it looked like they weren't going to have that mission, they were not real happy. And so they fought very hard to persuade the Big Ten to let the season go on after the Big Ten said it was going to cancel. And now that it's here, they are very determined to take advantage of it.
And what about the one thing that I'm concerned about for the Big Ten schools is the very fact of with this season now and just starting obviously tomorrow. I know how Ohio State wants to make, obviously they're one of the best teams in the country and they want to make obviously the national championship. But what happens if there's a whole bunch of, just like we're talking about with Cincinnati, will they be able to make it if they had to reschedule these games? Or I'm not trying to throw a
nobody knows anything, right? I mean, you go week to week, you go day by day, and you just kind of hope that you don't have those outbreaks. I think the Big Ten said that it's got to be 6 games to kind of count as a season. It's hard for me to believe that the selection committee would approve of a team or vote for a team that only played 5 games. That's hard to imagine, unless they're just the season's wiped out everywhere, and then all bets are off. But Ohio State's at a disadvantage in one sense because the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 have played a month, basically. Now, the Big 12 has kind of played itself out of the playoff, I would think. At least Oklahoma and Texas have. But Clemson looks really good. Alabama looks really good. But those teams have a jump on Ohio State. And now I think if Ohio State wins the Big Ten, if they go undefeated, certainly they're in. I don't think there's any question about that. But they know starting the season, there's no margin for error.
You guys up in the season up tomorrow. This is Kyle, by the way. I had dog duty. I had to take the dog out as we were coming on the air. It's just how things go. And when I say dog duty,
I've been there.
I don't mean dog duty. I mean,
I know. I've got a dog too.
Yeah. So, but you guys up in the season up tomorrow with Nebraska, Scott Frost going into year number 3 or 4. Lost track now.
5 actually, but yeah.
Is it? It can't be year 5. There's no way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant ranked number 5. Scott Frost is year number 3. Yeah.
Yeah, year 3. So got to be some pressure on Frost's shoulders at this point going into year 3. Tough opener with Ohio State. How do you perceive things from their standpoint, from Nebraska's standpoint? What are their expectations?
Well, I think they want to see progress because they didn't see much of it last year. The first year was a tough year, and then last year they were expected to make a jump and really compete for the Big Ten West championship, and that did not happen. And so I think there is pressure on him. I don't think there's pressure on him to beat Ohio State tomorrow, but I think there is pressure on Frost to have this season be a step forward.
Yeah, you guys, I don't know if this has been talked about or not. You guys had a really good defense last year. You averaged something like 14 points a game, giving up. lost a good amount off that defense. Obviously, you guys in recent years have been recruiting really well. How much of a drop off do you expect to see from your defense, if any?
Well, obviously, it hurts to lose Chase Young and Jeff Okuda. They were the number 2 and 3 guys taken in the draft. So that's obviously, it's hard to replace guys like that. But they feel very good about a very deep linebacker group. And even Chase Young, as great as he was, they've got some really good defensive ends. Jonathan Cooper, Zach Harrison, Tyreek Smith. They've been very good. Probably the biggest question they have on defense is the secondary, where at least Sean Wade came back. He's likely to be a first-round pick next year. But the other 3 are going to be new starters. And the defensive tackles are a little thin right now. So those are the big question marks for the defense. But it's a cliche, I know, and I hate the cliche, but it is a situation where Ohio State does reload and not rebuild.
Big Ten title game is scheduled for, I believe, December 19th. If I remember right, looking at the Big Ten schedule, did the Big Ten not pencil in a week after the season, the regular season, to try to make up a game? It looks like you guys are going to have to play straight through, and if a game gets canceled, it's going to be lost. Yep,
that's the way it's going to be. Yep. So there were people that were pushing to start the season a week ago that would give Ohio State, every team in the Big Ten, a cushion, and they decided that they needed to start on the 24th.
As far as Ryan Day is concerned, I know there was a lot of talk like how he would do, but he's done so well. How are the fans? I know they've got to be very pleased with how he started so far.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he filled in for Urban Meyer during his suspension in 2018, won those 3 games, and then last year had the job full time. And it was I've followed Ohio State for a long time, covered them for a long time. That was the most consistently dominating team that Ohio State's had. I'm not saying it was the best necessarily, but they blew everybody out almost. And then they got to Clemson, and that was a game that's going to haunt them forever. But you couldn't look at that season and say it was a disappointment other than the ending. This year, the feeling is that they want to take another step and that they can. I mean, let's face it, LSU would have been a really tough game for Ohio State, for anybody. That was a crazy, crazy good team that LSU had with Joe Burrow. And it would have been fun to watch Burrow against his old teammates. But, I'm not saying Ohio State wouldn't have won that game, or they would have. It would have been a very tough game. But this year, they feel like they want another shot. I think they'd prefer Clemson, but I think they just want another shot to get back to the playoff.
And LSU is not LSU this year as well.
No, they're not.
They're back down to reality, back down to earth, I think.
Yeah, Bo Pelini's not exactly at a great debut in Baton Rouge.
No, not at all. What is the fan situation like in Columbus with the Big Ten starting play? Are you guys having any percentage of fans? I know here in North Carolina, we're allowed a whopping 7%. What is Ohio's governor doing, and what is Ohio State doing?
It's really a Big Ten decision. No fans. The only fans who will be there are the players' families. They get 4 passes. So between Nebraska's players and Ohio State's players, they can have about 1,500 people, something like that. Actually, in the stadium, including media, it's going to be, I think, 1,600. I'm one of the lucky ones. It's going to be a very strange, surreal atmosphere at the Horseshoe tomorrow.
Yeah, we're based out of Eastern North Carolina, and last week I went to the East Carolina game. 3,500 people allowed into a 51,000 seat stadium, and it was completely different. Now, what I did find interesting with 3,500 people is that when there was intense moments in the game, it really felt more like you were at the game. Those 3,500 people made some noise, but just when the game is going on and you got your average plays, it is completely quiet, like you're at a golf match. That's when it's really weird. But the big moments, it still got loud even with just 3,500 people.
Yeah, well, they're going to pipe in noise, but pre-snap is going to be 70 decibels, which is like a vacuum cleaner. And then if they're huge plays, touchdown, interception, whatever, they can dial it up to 85 or 90. So it'll be fairly loud, but it's not the same. I mean, let's not kid ourselves.
And no, the weird thing about that,
it's like that's just white noise. That when you're there, to me, it just struck me as white noise. It did not on TV when you're watching it and you get the false sound. It sounds more like a crowd. When you're at the stadium, it just kind of becomes white noise, like it's not even there.
I'm not a fan of it at all. They had our crowd and the crowd noise together at the same time. That was just really bizarre. I don't like it personally, but I mean, I know when
Dave, I don't mind it. What I found is just what I said. When you were in the press box, I was in the stands, and to me, it just the artificial crowd noise, it just became white noise. It just became like it wasn't even there.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and we're in the twilight zone, Bill, right now, in the sports world and beyond. Is there what kind of safety? I guess a mask. What kind of safety protocols are they asking for the fans tomorrow?
They'll be physically distanced. I mean, the families can stay together. The 4 people can stay together, but they're going to be spread out throughout the first level of the stadium. No photographers at field level. They'll be in that section. In terms of media, we're going to be. I think they normally have like 220 people, and there's going to be 40 in the press box, including SIDs and people like that. So it is going to be very, very strange. There's just no getting around it. I'm going to probably get there early because I just want to soak in the non-atmosphere, I guess.
Is that part of your story? I take it as that to cover the COVID aspect of it and the game.
Well, I think it probably should be because I've got more than ever. I've really got to be the eyes and the ears for my readers.
Yeah.
Normally, Ohio State games are always on TV. I know that Ohio State fans know who won the game. They know what really happened. This is going to be a little different. I'm going to have to try to convey what it was like to be there. It'll be a once in a lifetime thing, no question.
Yeah, looking back, we can talk about how, for example, last week we had our star quarterback had a false positive, and that really hurt us with our chances against Navy. So hopefully the commissioner will change that rule like they did the SEC. And we're in such a fluid situation. That's why I brought it up, is the very fact that we don't know.
That's a good question. That's a good question for him. Do you know the Big Ten's rule on that? The SEC has it where you can test out basically. If you test positive on Monday and you have two negative tests after that, they will consider that first test a false positive. The American, the conference East Carolina plays in, does not have that rule. Once you test, you're considered positive, even if tests after that are negative. You can't test out and it could be considered a false positive. Do you know what the Big Ten's rule is on that?
I do need to double check. The Big Ten rule is that you're out for 3 weeks. You have to be quarantined for 14 days, and you can integrate back in that 3rd week. I don't think there are any exceptions. I think if you test positive, now I think that they test when they get to the facility, and then if there's a positive, then I think they take a retest right away. But if after that happens, and I'm not maybe speaking out of terms, I'm not absolutely positive about that, but I think if you test negative, then they do another test to see. But if you confirm that you've tested positive, then you're out for 21 days.
Wow. Okay. And the American is if you test positive, there is no retesting that counts. You can be retested, but they're not going to look at it. But you're only out 10 days. Okay. Now, if contact tracing, you're actually out 14 days. And you can't test out, which is kind of strange. So it's funny. Every conference is different.
It's going to add so much uncertainty because, in Ohio State's case, they have one indispensable player, Justin Fields. And if something happens to Justin Fields, then, can they win with Gunnar Hoke, who's their backup, who's never really played much for them, or one of the 2 freshmen that they have? They're Ohio State. They could certainly beat Rutgers or Illinois. But could they beat Clemson or no? No, they couldn't. Although we said that about Cardale Jones, too, 6 years ago. So I don't want to use that definitive.
Right. You never know. But I'll tell you what, if you lose your starting quarterback, speaking from experience, it can cost you a ball game as it did East Carolina last week. And let's hope, Ohio State's playing for bigger stakes than we are. And let's hope you guys don't end up in that situation this year.
Yeah, obviously the most important thing is that the players stay safe, that the coaches stay safe. This thing is this disease, this virus it's a serious thing. And so I think hopefully people understand that football is secondary, but if you can do it safely, then great, have a season, have a diversion from what has been just an awful year for everybody. If you can give somebody something to smile about, great.
No, absolutely.
Now, Bill, in addition to obviously the game at the Horseshoe tomorrow against Nebraska, let's take a look around the Big Ten. Action getting underway tonight as 14th ranked Wisconsin's already up 7-0 on Illinois at Camp Randall. Just over 4 minutes into that ball game, you have number 8 Penn State, who's expected to be a challenger in the league, going to Bloomington, Indiana team that can be feisty, especially at home. And then probably one of the biggest matchups is undoubtedly your Ohio State, I should say, his biggest rival, number 18 Michigan, going to Minneapolis to take on 21st ranked Minnesota.
Yeah, the Michigan-Minnesota game is very intriguing because Minnesota obviously had a breakthrough year last year. The pressure's on Jim Harbaugh to break through. They have not done it. He has not beaten Ohio State in 7 games. I don't think that they think this is a vintage Michigan team. They're breaking in a new quarterback and they lost a lot of players. But yeah, if they lose to Minnesota, that's not a great sign for Michigan. But it's not going to be easy games. I think Minnesota is for real.
Yeah, it did not surprise me that Michigan had won so many in Minneapolis, but I did not realize it was 16 straight.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
That's crazy. Bill, before we let you go, can you give everybody how can we follow your work, and obviously give us your Twitter handle, social media stuff?
Sure. Yeah, Twitter is BR Dispatch, just my initials, BR Dispatch, my newspaper. I have an Instagram account, but I never look at it. So Twitter's the best place to follow me.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck to the Buckeyes tomorrow, and so happy that we could have a season with the Big Ten, Pac-12, MAC. It's more of a sense of normalcy when it comes to college football, and we'll have you back on again soon. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. All right. So appreciate him very much. Ohio State. And now we go from one team that has red to another team that has red. And they may be seeing red tomorrow as they're taking on the UNC Tar Heels. Of course, I'm talking about the NC State Wolfpack. Corey Smith of Pack Pride is joining us now here on the Inside Slant. Corey, man, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Good. Glad to have you back. A huge game coming up tomorrow at noon at Chapel Hill. 2 teams that are ranked. Man, that is incredible for normally when you think about NC State and North Carolina, you think about basketball if it was ranked. But this particular case, both teams are ranked. Usually it's one or the other, it seems like, especially in more recent times, NC State. North Carolina's had a lot of trouble recently, and that's why you bring back Mac Brown to kind of smooth things up, and he's done a nice job recruiting, as we've talked about with you last time. What are your expectations going into this game tomorrow?
Well, if you had talked to me at this time last week and we were talking about the UNC game, it'd be vastly different. You mentioned the fact that it was the first time in a while that they've been both ranked. Last time this happened where both teams were ranked was 1993. This is the third time, and I believe over 111 times they played each other. Right. The third time that they played each other as both ranked teams. So yeah, it's pretty different circumstances for both these teams. But yeah, I mean, going back to my expectations for tomorrow, obviously after losing Devin Leary last week with a broken fibula, he'll be out at least 4 to 8 weeks. We expect him to probably be out for the rest of the season. If there's any chance that he plays, it's probably during a bowl game after the season. And we'll see what exactly that entails, because if he's out for a full 8 weeks, then I probably won't be ready to go by that point. So, but yeah, I mean, expectations now are, if Bailey Hockman's able to come out there and be a solid game manager, get the ball in the hands of his playmakers, get the ball down the field, I expect you're going to see this offense be a little bit different than it has been in past weeks. They're going to go for those big shots, but I think it's going to be on trick plays. I don't think it's going to be on just Bailey Hockman trying to take a 20-yard pass downfield, because in the win against Wake Forest, he completed, I believe, 17 passes, and of those 17 passes, only 2 of them were in flight for more than 20 yards. So he does not like to take shots downfield. 11 of them were at the line of scrimmage or within 5 yards. So you're going to see a lot of dump passes trying to get in the hands of playmakers. And if NC State's going to have any chance of winning this game tomorrow or making it close, it's going to be keeping the ball out of the hands of Sam Howell and that UNC offense, because we know they're pissed off after last week going into this game, and they have plenty of reason to want to win this game and blow NC State out as well because of that recruiting aspect as well.
How's the Wolfpack running game looking, Corey? Obviously, whenever you lose your quarterback, you tend to rely a little bit more on the running game. So how's that aspect of the Wolfpack's offense?
Yeah, well, they have, kind of a three-headed monster when it comes to the running game. Jordan Houston hasn't been as productive this year as he was last year, but Ricky Person's really stepped up. Ricky Person, a former four-star player in the state of North Carolina, came over to NC State as the number 2 running back in I think it was the 2018 class at this point. It was either 2018 or 2017, I can't remember. But yeah, he came to NC State as, a really highly touted prospect. Hadn't been able to live up to those expectations the last 2 years because of injuries, but so far this year, particularly in the 2 home games, he's had over 100 yards in each of those games. I believe he has, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe he has 3 overall touchdowns that he's scored. He's also passed for a touchdown this season on a jump pass at the goal line. And then Zonovan Knight has been a guy that's been one of the more productive running backs in the ACC. But the one game that they really had that was their best game of the year, where all 3 of them really contributed in a big way, was against Wake Forest, and that was when Bailey Hockman made the start and they won the game. They all 3 combined for over 300 yards in that game, between passing yards and between rushing yards, and combined for 4 touchdowns in that game. Like I said, Ricky Person having the 1 passing touchdown as well. So if they're going to win this game tomorrow, or they're going to make it close, it's going to be a lot on those guys' shoulders tomorrow.
Now, Corey, you talked about that 1993 NC State North Carolina game. I remember that one taking place at Carter Finley. I was 12 years old, and my dad and some of his friends were actually out in Seattle for the East Carolina-Washington game. And I remember tuning in to watch some of that one. And that was the game with the brawl, correct?
Yeah. 2 coaches brawling after the game, yeah.
I just remember seeing helmets coming over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually interesting enough. I mean, that was another one that, so far NC State in these 2 rivalries, in the previous 2 games where they've been ranked, NC State has not won either one of them. So, NC State comes into this in an interesting situation again. UNC at that time, Mac Brown, hadn't quite gotten things going, and that was the first year where he really got things going. NC State had just changed head coaches. And that was the first year, I believe, of Mike O'Kane, and it didn't end up going particularly well. So you're looking at, a situation now where, NC State is in a similar situation where, yes, they're 4-1, yes, they're ranked, but they now lose their quarterback for this game going into it. So their only hope right now is to really just try to, keep things within reach, keep with things within reach throughout the entire game, and really try to, finish it out at the end if they're going to make a statement.
And no doubt they will, with the very fact with having Mac Brown, Dave Doran, and one thing that you were talking about winning this game is very true, is that Dave Doran has pretty much owned North Carolina a handful of years. When Mac coming back, then the recruiting seems to be shifting over back to the in-state guys going to UNC. So it's going to be a big game tomorrow for Dave Doran and for Mac Brown to see, I guess, who's going to be able to win that recruiting war.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily for 2021. It's more for 2022, because you've got a lot of guys in the state of North Carolina. 24/7 Sports released their rankings earlier this week, and there's 8 players inside of the state of North Carolina in the 2022 class. It's in their top 24/7 overall. And several of those guys are inside of the top 100. You've got guys like Travis Shaw out of the Greensboro area. You've got Shalik Knotts. You've got, several wide receivers and Michael Allen as well, a running back in the state of North Carolina. And these guys are just, they're some of the top recruits in the entire state, but the entire country as well. So they're going to be watching this game, and they're both being all of those guys are being recruited by both teams as well. So this is I think for NC State, if you're able to keep this game close, you're still able to go to these recruits and say, look, we're going to have Devin Leary back next year, you're the difference maker for us the following year. You're the guy that's going to get us over the hump and get us back to where we need to be. Whereas if you get blown out again, if you lose 41-10 like you did last year, then recruits are going to say, well, clearly, UNC is the best team in the state, and we don't have to, we can just go straight there and we win. We're going to be the best team in the state, and that's the issue that you run into now is regardless of what NC State does, they need to keep the game close in order to be able to compete in those battles, and that's going to be, as you said, David. I mean, it's going to be a crucial point for NC State in this game.
Corey, you mentioned Mike O'Kane earlier. And first of all, how old are you, Corey?
31.
31. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're not going to remember this, but I'm going to bring it up anyway because I always ask people if they remember this. Because it's one of my favorite moments. And I don't have too many favorite moments involving North Carolina State, just being honest, except times where East Carolina's beating them. But NC State had a game against Syracuse in the Carrier Dome, mid-90s. And there was a 2-point conversion play. It was when Syracuse was in the Big East. And ESPN2, this is back in the early days of ESPN2, used to run an advertisement with NC State winning that game because I guess it was the first big exciting ending of a game on ESPN2. And the announcer, I can just hear it in my head, college football on ESPN2. And they would show a highlight of that game, and the announcer would be going, "What an incredible call by Mike O'Kane."
And they showed it entirely too long, right?
Yeah, exactly, yes.
Like after he's already fired and gone from the program.
No, it wasn't that bad. This was
I tell you the
just
game,
that one season.
You know why he got fired, right?
Yes.
Because he lost it. He lost the very first time NC State finally came to Greenville because we're such a terrible place to play. They finally came in 1999 and November of 99. I was there. And I'll never forget it. That was a Saturday afternoon when they played that game. Sunday morning, I'll never forget the chancellor went to his house and fired him. I'm like,
well,
like a
Dave, that was the catalyst. But I mean, chances are, had Mike O'Kane had a great record going into that East Carolina game, he wouldn't have been fired. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right, but still, that's what that. If he'd won that game, it probably saved his job.
Yeah,
probably.
Similar to Mark Godfrey a couple of years ago where, there was rumors that he was going to be out. There was rumors he was going to be gone. And then he'd lose another lopsided game to UNC. And it was the next day like, all right, we're going to be letting go of Mark Godfrey. He's planning to finish the rest of the season because he's a good man like that. And we're like, no.
Well, the same thing happened with Chuck Amato in 06. Lost to East Carolina, fired the next day.
I remember that 06 game, Kyle. I was there, and when they put a motto up on the scoreboard, all the NC State fans started booing.
Yeah, they were tired of him. It was kind of like East Carolina and Scotty Montgomery.
Again, it didn't particularly help that he had lost to Southern Miss and Akron earlier in the year either. Yeah. But yes, I agree.
And in those days, Southern Miss would beat a lot of people. I don't know if I'd put them on this and mentioned them in 06 in the same breath as Akron.
Well, that happened to be homecoming game. So
that's your stupidity for scheduling Southern Miss for homecoming. Are you out of your mind?
That's all right. Homecoming last year was Clemson. So.
Oh my God.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Good luck with that one.
Y'all must just do it on a certain date. It doesn't matter the opponent.
I couldn't tell you.
October.
Florida State is homecoming this year, which is looking a little bit better.
You know what? Historically, you guys have done pretty good against the Seminoles. So.
Yeah.
I'll take Florida State over Clemson any day right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you're saying, Kyle. Even back in the 90s when Florida State was dominating the ACC, I know when Torrey Holt was at NC State and the Wolfpack beat them, and in the other years they gave them everything they wanted.
Yeah, NC State's always played Florida State. Good. I can remember. Was it 2010 that we beat we beat NC State and then they turn around the next week and beat Florida State or somebody? It was something in recent history.
I think that's
I can't remember the circumstances of that one, but I do remember. Yeah, there was a Thursday night game that they beat Florida State. I think 2011, I believe, where they beat them at home, and that was with Mike Glennon, the first year of Mike Glennon. And then I believe it was Nate Irving that forced the fumble at the end of the game, and they ended up turning them over and winning the game that way.
I remember in the early '90s with Mac Brown and Florida State. Since we had that game last week, I'll just say they always would say, "This is the game of the century," and then the next year, "This is the game of the century." I'm like, how many game of the centuries can you have? Florida State is killing North Carolina every time, including last week when I think that maybe that fired Florida State up, and you have a great coach in Mike Norvell who had done a great job at Memphis and now going there. And I believe there's a lot of talent there. I think that, as a lot of people have said, it's a culture problem. So we'll see how that plays out for Florida State. But putting you on the spot, Corey, before we let you go, who do you think wins tomorrow in Chapel Hill?
Oh, I mean, if we're being honest, I think I would have to go with UNC. I mean, that's, the money's on UNC. I believe it's the last time I checked it was 15.5. The over like 60.5 or something like that. And I think that's Vegas thinking that NC State is going to try to have these long methodical drives and probably put a limited amount of points up on the board. But that's really not Tim Beck. Tim Beck is going to try to take his shots. But I think the only chance for NC State to win this game, they're going to keep it close again, is to go into those back and be able to, to have some of these, wide receiver passes, or you think the triple, the reverse that they had against, 2 weeks ago, they ended up having the big pass play against Virginia, and that was to Kerry Angeline. So if they're going to have a chance in this game again, I think it's Tim Beck is going to have to run a productive offense, and I think it's going to be a lot on NC State's front six because, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Peyton Wilson's been all the talk of the ACC over the last week, in particular because of how well he played, winning linebacker of the week last week, 19 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a half sack, half tackle for loss. So going into this game, there's going to be a lot of motivation for him, a former UNC commit who flipped to NC State. And you've got a Lee McNeil who's just going to be a dominant force up front. So NC State's able to control the game, limit what UNC is able to do on the ground, force them into passing plays, and be able to limit some of the big pass plays that UNC is known for at this point. I think that's going to give NC State a chance. But again, I go with UNC, but I think it's going to be a much tighter game than a 2-touchdown score. If I had to put a number on it right now, I'd probably say maybe 35-31 or 35-28, somewhere around that number.
All right, before we let Corey go, I got a question for Bubba and Dave here. Bubba, Dave, who do y'all pull for in this game? Because, whenever NC State and UNC is playing, I typically pull for whoever, is doing the worst. That way, but both teams are doing really well this year, both in the top 25. So, I don't know who to pull for. So, Bubba, which team nauseates you less, the Wolfpack or the Tar Heels?
Historically, I've gone with NC State, but I get where you're coming from, Kyle. As far as the ranking and just whoever's having the better season, you wanting to see them lose. But probably more often than not, I've pulled for NC State just because North Carolina is so sickening with the arrogance factor.
NC State. I won't waste any time. NC State.
Yeah, I do typically go for whoever the underdog is. I do lean more towards NC State because, even though there's a rivalry there with East Carolina and NC State, I think NC State fans, particularly the older ones, will admit it's a rivalry, whereas UNC don't even want to acknowledge East Carolina.
No, exactly.
So
they won't even play us.
Not anymore. You beat them 3 times in a row. I guess that's why. And you beat them with Montgomery as your head coach.
That's why it's not a rivalry, Kyle, because we beat them 3 straight. So
yeah, well, Scotty Montgomery. And when you lose with Scotty Montgomery, you just give up. So
I want to point out something really quickly that actually Dave Doran talked about earlier this week. He was asked about the NC State's culture versus UNC, and it's kind of interesting that you say that, Bubba, because he said NC State sees themselves as a blue collar, hand in the dirt type of program. They He was talking about, recruiting Peyton Wilson earlier this week. And he said, the reason why we flipped Peyton Wilson was because Larry Fedora tried to show up in a helicopter, and I showed up in my pickup truck blaring country music, and he knew that was the program that he aligned with more. And I feel like that's, the cultures kind of align a little bit more with ECU and NC State in terms of the fan base, in terms of, the people around the programs. So I feel like, if you had to pick a side, every time that we watch ECU and UNC, I can guarantee you every single NC State fan is rooting for ECU. So That's just so you guys know, the feeling is mutual.
Well, good luck to the Wolfpack, Corey. I guess this is the one game a year that we all pull for the Wolfpack, apparently.
No doubt. It's a good school. Corey, how can everybody find your work, man?
As always, Twitter is at @RCoreySmith. Corey is spelled Cory, so it's at @RCoreySmith. It's the same on Twitter. Don't find me on Facebook because I don't,
You're way too young for Facebook.
All my media stuff on Twitter and Instagram.
I said you're way too young for Facebook. All of us old fogies are on Facebook still. So.
If you want to find us, on Facebook, you can find everything at Pack Pride. I believe on Facebook you search NC State Wolfpack on 24/7 Sports or something like that. So, yeah.
Should be a great game. High noon tomorrow on ESPN. Corey will be watching and here on my big screen right behind me. So good luck to the Wolfpack. We'll see how it goes, and we'll have you back on soon, man.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good one.
All right, you too. Have a good Friday night.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, as always, college football is going to be fantastic. We'll have coming up in just a little bit, we'll have Dave Lamont of ESPN.
Hey, Dave, if you could have seen me right then, I got my my avatar, my static image on the screen, and when the Chiron or the logo just went over my face, I literally moved my head around trying to get it off my face.
Oh my God, that's great. Right now we have with us Davis Potter, the Wilmington Wyoming beat writer for the Casper Star Tribune. Davis, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, there's a little lag, but we can hear you just fine.
Thanks for coming on with us. Appreciate it very much. Very much. I know Bubba reached out to you. We've got a big game this week.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, they're opening their season finally. After the Mountain West, canceled the season and then sort of reverse course on that. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting matchup to open up because these are two teams I think that both have conference championship aspirations. With Wyoming, they'll certainly be disappointed if December rolls around. They're not in the thick of that conversation, just because of some of the experience that they have back. Particularly on the offensive side of the ball, they just might have to do it
Yeah,
a little bit differently this year. Because they've leaned so heavily on what's been one of the Mountain West best defenses, real strong running game. But they lost 6 starters on defense, and then lost 5 more significant. Really expects to get a boost with the return of quarterback Sean Chambers, who's really been probably their most impactful offensive player, since he became there fully healthy. And they need to find a way to keep him on the field. But yeah, I think you're going to see some growing pains on the defensive side of the ball for Wyoming.
We're having trouble.
Yeah, we're having technical difficulties here. I think his lag is so bad he's not even hearing us.
Particularly on the line of scrimmage, because Wyoming does have.
I think he's a good 30,
really
40
veteran
seconds behind
offensive
us.
line, 4 starters coming back, and
Yep.
but Nevada's got a really experienced defensive line, and they have one of the most disruptive defensive players in all the Mountain West last year, and John Peterson, who
Can
Yeah,
you guys get up with him? Can
not
we
that.
can we just try to get him a little bit later?
Yeah, we'll see if we can see if we can Davis. If you can hear us, we actually will try to get him back on. Davis Potter, Casper Star Tribune, big game coming up. Seems like
those Rocky Mountains there are causing havoc with his cell reception. Clearly.
Well, we'll see. It's because whenever you try to use a phone, for those that maybe want to come on the show, watching right now, if you use an iPhone or use a phone, it's a lot more trouble than if you use like an iPad or a tablet, another kind of tablet or a laptop. So anyway, let's see if we can bring from ESPN. We'll go ahead and bring Dave Lamont in. Dave, how are you? Good to see you, man.
I'm doing well. Do you guys hear me on a normal delay here? Everything sound okay?
Yeah, you don't sound like a creepy, like scary demon from the depths of hell. Nothing against Davis. He was giving a good preview of Wyoming, Nevada. It sounded like he was giving us a lot of good information, but boy, that was. Woof.
It's
like
funny.
The Adams family.
Craig Bowl at Wyoming is one of my favorite guys to deal with, and ESPN no longer carries him out in the West, which is a bummer. But he's a straight shooter, as straight as they come in college football. So I hope they do well. Yeah,
I saw that. The no Mountain West football on ESPN. It's going to be CBS Sports and Fox Sports 1 now. And I always, my favorite thing about the Mountain West is my favorite thing about the Big 12, or excuse me, about the Pac-12 is the 10 and 11 o'clock kickoffs Eastern, where you can. After all the games are off, there's still something else to watch, and I can sit up to 2 a.m. Eastern watching college football.
Well, some of the coolest road trips are out there, too. I like Reno, San Diego, UNLV, Boise State. Boise, Idaho is one of the underrated cities in America. You've got some really cool road trips in addition to some good football.
Yeah, no doubt.
No question. Want to get your thoughts on, obviously, college football. It's been strange, but now we're adding when you have the Big Ten, especially some big games. We'll see Ohio State how they do. But what are your thoughts on finally having the Big Ten come in tomorrow?
Yeah, funny. I do my own show, which you guys have been so helpful with in making my show look good. The nooner that I do on Monday and Friday, and I was talking about Ohio State and Nebraska with a couple of buddies of mine, Mark Neely and Ray Bentley. And Mark just happened to casually mention, Ohio State is a tune-up against Nebraska. And my brain went, oh, my God, I'm now living in a world where Nebraska is a tune-up. And the thing is, he's right. I grew up, I'm a little older than you guys. I grew up where Nebraska was a dominant power in the national picture every year for a title. And now here they are, 26-point underdogs against Ohio State, whom everybody thinks is going to just destroy the Big Ten this year and maybe even elbow their way into the CFP. And I don't know if anybody else in that conference is good enough, although maybe Penn State will give them a game. I think they're playing next week.
Yeah, Ohio State, Penn State. And, but, I don't – that line looks a little too big to me for Nebraska. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but, neither one of these teams has played yet. I know all the hype around Ohio State. This is year 3 for Scott Frost. I'm not calling for the upset by any means, but that line looks a little too big for me.
It is high, and but I think it's reflective, and I haven't seen any movement on it either. So in other words, any money that's coming in there, it's kind of holding the line up to where it started. I just, Nebraska hasn't done anything. And I know Scott Frost, the local boy, and what he did at UCF was maybe as great a turnaround story in 2 years as you'll ever see in the history of college sports, certainly college football. But he hasn't been able to replicate that magic at Nebraska. And the other thing that we were talking about today is that Nebraska, again, I remember Nebraska. You had, 2 guys with their fists in the dirt, and they ran the wishbone, and they threw the ball about 4 times a week, and they won. And now a generation has gone by since Nebraska has been truly relevant in college football, and that generation may not grow up wanting to be the next Cornhusker. They may want to go to Oregon because they got flashy uniforms. They want to go to another school because they've got this. They want to go here. They want to go to Ohio State. They want to go where the winning is. So for Scott Frost walked into a very difficult situation of basically a great program that is wrecked. And let me put it this way. If I just so happened to be at a sports book, I wouldn't touch that game with your money, but I can see why Ohio State's a prohibitive favorite.
And Dave, that one of the things for me that I talk about, the same thing for Arkansas going to the SEC in '92. I knew why they did it was for money. But Nebraska fits more, I believe, in the Big 12. And I know we have realignment, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent on a soapbox here, but I really believe that they're a misfit in the Big 10. That's just my opinion.
I think they're good for the Big Ten, prestige-wise.
Right.
The teams that don't belong are Rutgers and Maryland. Okay, let's just get that out in the open. That's absurd. I can live with Nebraska in the Big 10. I miss them playing Oklahoma. I miss them playing Texas. I miss them playing some of the games that made them the program they are. But I can handle them in the Big 10. I can't handle West Virginia in the Big 12. And I can't handle Rutgers and Maryland where they are. That is, and by the way, Syracuse, and I've been to Syracuse, not exactly an Atlantic coastal city. And they don't belong in the ACC. We could do this, guys, until midnight. We could realign college football for the good and fix a lot of problems. But
you could take Syracuse, okay? You could take Rutgers, and you could take West Virginia. And you could put them together with some other teams. They might be able to form their own conference and call it maybe the Big East. Maybe
we did that. Yeah, I happened to be a part of that when Miami was involved in it, and that's why I made plenty of trips to Morgantown and Syracuse. And listen, they're great in their own world. And the other thing we lost is among the rivalries we lost, guys, we lost West Virginia and Pitt. We lost Texas A&M. We lost Nebraska, Oklahoma. Some of the things that we don't have anymore, Maryland and North Carolina in basketball, and NC State in basketball, Maryland, Duke in basketball. Yes, Syracuse is helpful in basketball. I can't dispute that. But in football, they're not helping anybody in the ACC.
No, so Syracuse football has been a disaster for a while now. And, I thought Coach Babels, did a great job at Bowling Green. And I thought he was really going to turn it around up there. And now they're getting blown out by Liberty. If I was Syracuse, I'd have just asked Hugh Freeze to stay over.
Well, I'm beginning to wonder if Dino's in some real trouble here, because I happened to call the game where they beat Clemson, Clemson was the number one team in the country, and that looked like the launching point for Syracuse, and it never really was. And they had a veteran quarterback, and I'm blanking on his name, but the guy that had been there since like 1968. You've seen those college guys. You go, is that guy still there? And like the best example most recently was Hunter Renfrow at Clemson, who I think played on Ford's 1982 title team and also played for Dabo Swinney. I mean, guys like that have been around forever. So they've not been able to duplicate that. And obviously his idea of playing this kind of football fast has not taken off. He doesn't have the people there, and they've worked on their facilities. They have some tradition, but you're right. They're in trouble, and I don't know if he can survive past this season. It depends on their patience, I guess.
Yeah, I think he's a good offensive-minded coach. I just think he's a bad fit. He shouldn't have jumped at the first Power 5 job that offered.
You may well be right there, because you have to look at the kind of players you have when you go in there, and he has a specific way of playing. He's not adjusting to his personnel as much as you have to be able to play for him, and find those guys, then he's got problems. And that seems to be where he is right now. He just can't find the kind of people, and they've never been good. He's not a guy that I would look at to rehab a defense. And he has to get the perfect defensive coaches in there, and he must be struggling in that regard.
Absolutely.
And Dave, as far as when we talk about the conferences, do you hear the rumors that there will be another conference realignment? Do you have any idea? I know you have your crystal ball there in the living room. Do you have any idea when that's going to happen?
No, I don't. But I have a lot of thoughts about how they're going to do it, and I just don't know if I can trust them. And I don't know if you're going to be inviting in group of 5 schools, say UCF, for example, which brings in a huge market in Orlando and ready-made, good facilities they have there at UCF. Are you talking about trying to drag Memphis into this and bring, they have a terrible football stadium, but a nice arena to play in basketball, an NBA arena where they play. BYU going to be part of this maybe? Does Boise State finally wiggle away and get a chance to compete regularly with the big time? I mean, these are questions I need answered before I'm dying to see. Or is it just going to be the same guys and we're going to throw them back into a bag and just start blindly drawing names again, like some of this seems to have been done?
Why don't they just take your 5 power conferences, then take the entire American Athletic Conference, Boise State, BYU, have them join the American. That'll make it 14. And, that'll be 6
13.
leagues.
It'll be 13, Kyle.
13. All right. Well, hell, we'll throw Air Force in too.
Yeah, because UConn left them behind.
That's right. So we'll throw Air Force in too, and then we'll be 14. And now you got 6 leagues, and let's just call that, whatever. Because what the Power 5 schools want to do is break off from the rest of the Division I and form their own separate division.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I think you got some schools in the American, plus Boise, plus BYU, and I'll throw Air Force in there too, that deserve to be mentioned alongside a lot of those so-called Power 5 schools.
I hate to go nerdy on you guys, but I think the biggest problem with that is the travel costs. Because for the Olympic type sports, the so-called non-revenue sports, even basketball, it ain't cheap getting to Boise, Idaho. You can get to Colorado Springs, not too difficult, but you can fly to Salt Lake City and drive to Provo. But I wonder if travel costs would be an issue. And remember about BYU is they don't play on anything on Sundays. So if you ever have your softball team, your baseball team, and you want to do a full weekend series with them, they won't do it. So there's a couple of complications with BYU. They would certainly be a great addition to anything. They bring prestige. They generally have good teams. They appear to be very good in football this year. But I wonder if you bring in those far western teams, if the bean counters, let's say Tulsa, look at that and go, I don't think that's a good idea.
I guess it depends. Are we going to would the American then be given what's quote unquote, I guess it would be Power 6 status? And suddenly instead of a television contract that's worth $7 million per school, is it worth $25 million per school? I mean, I think that kind of takes care of the sending the volleyball team to Boise.
Now, here's the other part, though. If you start looking ahead at money, obviously this stretch we're going through right now has been difficult for all the networks.
Yeah.
And there have been layoffs across the country, and revenues are tighter. So are the networks going to be willing to spend what they have spent? Now, ESPN has a bunch of contracts that run into the next decade in some cases, especially I think the SEC and the ACC. So it goes locked down. But negotiations are going to come up from time to time, and I'll be dying to see what those figures look like, because if they continue to go up, that means something's going to have to get cut, or someone is going to have to get cut, or someone's, in order to keep the programming alive. I mean, the NBA is going to be a big ticket. The NFL one of these days is going to look different than it does now. That's, you mentioned money. Is the American, who thinks of themselves as the 6th power conference, are they going to be benefiting from something like this, or are they going to get left out in the cold because there's a shift in the sports economy?
Yeah, that's a good question in general. I mean, I think COVID is affecting things financially, everywhere. You see American conference schools cutting sports, cutting revenue. You see Power 5 conference schools cutting sports and not cutting revenue, cutting sports, and because they're losing revenue, and cutting positions, staff positions, furloughs. I mean, it's going on across the board, and you wonder how much more of this any conference, or particularly the so-called Group of 5 conferences, can take. Of not having fans in attendance or limited fans in attendance. People keep talking about, well, COVID will be over. COVID will be over. We thought it would be over by the football season. Now, you thought it would be over at the beginning of the year. Well, what happens? I mean, you don't want to play Debbie Downer, but what happens if it's still going on next football season? I don't think a lot of Group of 5 schools could survive another football season of this.
No, I agree. I don't think they could. Everything I've read, there's some optimism that next football season will be a normal one, but you're right. Things can change. What if the vaccines aren't right? Once we get them, that is, and if they're distributed properly and all the rest of that stuff that's out of our hands. But you mentioned the cuts. Michigan State just cut the swim teams. Stanford cut a ton of sports, and Stanford has more money than God, and they still did it. I'm surprised more schools haven't done it, to be honest, at any level, that there have not been more of these casualties. And you mentioned the structure, the people who have been let go left and right in different schools. Boise State's AD just stepped down, and they raised the interim guy up, but I guarantee you they're saving money while they're doing it, or he's been reassigned. I'm sure some money has changed hands there to save them some money. Coaches have taken pay cuts, as they should. Some of them are making handsome amounts of money anyway. So, yeah, this is a weird stretch. And that's why you've got to have an NCAA basketball tournament this year. You've got to have a March Madness. You've got to crown a champion because of the hundreds of millions of dollars in ad revenues. I mean, short of the Super Bowl in sports and maybe, God, I can't think of anything else. Some companies are actually now debuting new commercials in March Madness like they do the Super Bowl. That's how important that event has become for TV advertisers.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Dave, is the very fact of now that we've been through one round of this, I think that I understand why we did what we did back in March, and when you hear the hindsight's 2020. But now that we've been through this, there is no excuse of to do the same thing like we did last March, because we've been through this. So I'm hearing a bubble or different things, and they should have. You know what? And I know we can. I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but I just will say one thing about it. I didn't think that it was right. I thought they should play without fans for the tournament for the very reason of what we're going through now. And they can't, even Coach Krzyzewski, there's been many coaches, we can't make it through another year. And if they're going to, I know that it's some responsibility on the citizens to wear a mask, and they're not doing it. So, and certain politicians, but they need to realize that we've got to have that sporting event for many reasons. Another thing too is mental health. I mean, that was devastating for college basketball fans for the amount of money. You look at our particular case with our baseball team as a top 15 team every year, and just a handful of games in, the whole season's gone.
Right.
So we can't afford to, for many reasons, not to have the basketball tournament and spring sports next year.
Well, the thing about a bubble for college basketball is it's expensive. The NBA can do it. You know, the NBA did it. It was unbelievably successful as far as you didn't have positive tests. You crowned a champion. I don't care about the ratings. The whole goal to me is, can you get to the finish line with a minimum amount of damage? And they did. I think what I'm hearing, one thing that may happen, although some schools have already released their conference schedules and they're working on their non-conference schedules for hoops, is you may get a situation. Let's use ECU for an example. Let's say they're going to play Tulane twice, but they're going to play them twice in New Orleans. And let's now say Tulsa is going to come to Greenville and play the two games in Greenville with maybe a day or two in between. Instead of, the travel, try to get your games in, especially your conference games, and do it that way. That's one model I've heard, and I'm just using, the Pirates as an example. That's okay. Can we at least get 20 to 22 conference games in and then get our conference tournaments in? Nobody knows yet about fans. Nobody knows, are we going to have 5,000? Are we going to have parents only? Are we going to have no one but the people who are working there? That is yet to be decided. And we don't know if that's going to be, because now we're drawing the NCAA in there. The NCAA's got nothing to do with football. If East Carolina says, you know what, we're hosting a football game and we're going to have 20,000 people in there, East Carolina can do that because the NCAA won't tell them what to do. But if you guys decide, hey, we want 4,000 fans at our basketball game, the NCAA could step in and go, yeah, we don't think that's a really good idea. And the conference, working with the conference. So there's a big difference here that with the NCAA being involved in one and not the other.
Yeah, and it seems like for basketball, what you're saying about conference play, about playing, using East Carolina's example, one trip to New Orleans, play Tulane twice, and, Cincinnati comes to Greenville, plays two in Greenville, makes a lot of sense. And then it seems to me for the non-conference stuff, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, as Dave and Bubba and Jay will know, I don't keep up with basketball like I do football or baseball. But it seems to me, and I'm sure some of this has already been scheduled, for non-conference, with the way the non-conference is played at the time of year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, a lot of schools are going to be done with their semesters at Thanksgiving this year. Seems you could just do a lot of bubbles for non-conference games, do a lot of tournaments where you can just have, 3 or 4 day tournaments, weekend tournaments, week-long tournaments, and get a lot of non-conference games in that way.
There's going to be one at the end of November and early December, a women's and a men's tournament at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut at the casino and the hotel there. involving 8 teams for the women and 8 teams for the men, and they're going to kind of mini bubble them up at the hotel. It's a big place, Mohegan Sun, so you can do that. They have a nice arena there, and you can pull that kind of thing off. Not everybody can do that, but you guys have seen, I mean, for example, the tournament that ended up being canceled, the Cayman Islands, okay, was moved to Northwest Florida in the Panhandle, about as close to Alabama as you are to Florida. And I happen to know the building that they were going to play the thing in. It's about a half hour from what is affectionately known as the Redneck Riviera. And that is not the Cayman Islands. It's not a bad place now, but it ain't the Cayman Islands. And they ended up canceling that. They had a Bahamas tournament that was going to go into the Dakotas before that got canceled. So, you know, the bubble concept for some of these, I think people have gotten to a point where they think it's going to work. And then I don't know what caused these other tournaments to be canceled, but I just don't know how much of a non-conference schedule. TV is going to get involved. They're going to try to schedule some big games, you know, if they can, some cross-country rivalries to pump the game up a little bit. I'm sure they're working on that right now, but it'll be interesting to see how it all turns out. Just crown a champion this year, please.
No doubt.
And we definitely will. Dave,
Oh
it's been a tough year. It feels like that. It feels like I've told people since March. It feels like that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
For those of us in sports, but we love having you on again. Love your name again. And how can we find your work? And love the show, by the way, too.
Well, I appreciate that. And listen, you all are significant contributors to that program. The show I call A Nooner with Dave Lamont is live on Facebook Monday and Friday at noon Eastern time. Usually one day during the week, usually Wednesdays, I'll throw up about a 5 or 6 minute almost daily Dave, depending on what's going on. This week with the Tua Tagovailoa Ryan Fitzpatrick news, it was an easy Wednesday for me talking about that. And I transfer that over to my YouTube channel as well. And I'm on Twitter at Dave Lamont1. And certainly appreciate all of your support. And please, when my boy Rini Angolia comes on there, give him my best. He's a great dude.
No doubt, he's awesome, and definitely looking forward to the rest of football season. We'll see about bowls and the CFP, and of course basketball season. We'll have you back on. You're one of our favorites. Appreciate it very much, man.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it as always. Take care.
All right, sure thing. All right, and coming up, we got Rich Phillips, guys, a big game with Cincinnati and, of course, SMU tomorrow. But we want to bring in one of our favorites, one of the best tight ends in the history of East Carolina football, and that will be Jay Sunhalter. Jay, man, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. I'm recovering from my ankle injury. I'm on the bike right now doing some rehab.
Oh my goodness! When can we suit you up next Friday night for Tulsa? Can you play?
I'll be ready. Just give me a couple days. I'll be able to make practice by Wednesday.
Are you watching any of this? Friday. Are you watching any of this Tulsa South Florida game, Jay? I'm not sure you want to play against that defense.
I'll find a way to. I'll be on the backside of a blocking play.
Yeah, they're pretty stout, man. Their defense their defense really may be. And this is not taking anything away from the Bearcats, but Tulsa might have the best defense in the conference.
And isn't that a shock? Because usually they're weak on the defensive side.
Yeah. I mean, they held Oklahoma State to 17. They held UCF to 26 and got the upset. And right now they're holding South Florida to 6 points.
And Kyle, like when you look at that like they've proven that they're good. When you can do that to Oklahoma State and UCF, I mean, those are like the 2 best offenses besides.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they're legit.
And now next week, if they hold us to 21 or less, we'll have to hear the Holton Ahlers can't play quarterback committee come back out. Dave, are you okay? Are you crying? I mean,
no, I'm fine. I have a little bit of a headache, but I'm fine. No, I was doing that reaction when you said that. Please stop with the Garcia stuff. And I'm not anti-Mason Garcia. He's not ready for prime time. He has a lot of talent. He's very raw. Nobody's anti-Mason, but the thing is that drives
I don't know
me
what anybody saw last week that made anybody think he nothing again. You got to be careful here. We don't want to sound like we're putting down Mason.
We're not.
But I don't know what anybody saw last week that made anyone think that he should be the starting quarterback over Holton Ahlers. But there seems to be a small group of Pirate Nation that feels that way. So I don't know what they saw.
Yeah. Well, what it is that they think that because of the win losses, they're clueless when it comes to college football, and they don't understand that we had a guy named Scotty Montgomery that ran the program into the ground. So we have a guy named Holton Ahlers who literally had nothing to work with, as he was a freshman and there was nothing to work with. And now things are finally starting to turn around his junior season. And the great thing about it is he has another junior season and a senior season potentially. Who knows if he's going to use that extra year or not? But Mason's going to be great, and he'll get his shot. It's just not his time right now, and that's okay. And for the people that are anti Holton Ahlers, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. He is a great quarterback, and when they next year when they're doing really well, pull for another team because you're a bunch of bandwagon people. Pull for your team when they're losing too, and please sometimes be objective. It just drives me nuts. Sorry.
Well, and guys, the good thing is, on the positive side, you've got a young player that, Mason Garcia's got so much talent, but like then you've got a veteran guy too. Most teams don't even have a quarterback, or they only have one. We have
Right.
two. We have two, so that's a good thing. Even though we lost last weekend, there's everybody talking about the quarterback situation. We've got two guys, so that's good.
Yeah, no doubt. And I have no doubt in my mind if Holton would have played last week, we would have beaten Navy. With the running game we've established now with Harris, I think that's the difference in this offense, Jay. I think to get good quarterback play out of the offense that Coach Houston wants to run, you have to have a running game because so much of it is predicated on the play action. So watching Harris develop the last 2 weeks against South Florida and against Navy, how much do you think that is going to help Holton going forward, having Harris to rely on that he can just hand the ball and get a few yards?
I think it's going to be huge because I think that's going to open up the play action passing game. And our offense has to have balance on it with it. And our defense is getting better, but they've had so many troubles. It's going to shorten down the game. So instead of us, against Georgia State where we got to throw the ball, all game long and coming from behind, if we have a running game, we're going to have balance that'll create, play action pass opportunities. But when a defense knows you're going to throw the ball, they can pin their ears back and come after Ahlers. And that's where we're struggling with our pass protection. But if there's the threat of a running game, it slows down the pass rush. And with the confidence that Harris is getting, week by week, I just think it's going to open up things so much for the offense. And then with Ahlers' running ability too, you can still do the zone read. And now there's two guys in the backfield that can run it. So I think it's going to help. I think in order for our team to win this year, obviously we got to improve on defense, but we've got to get our running game going. If we can get our running game going, it's going to open up everything.
And that great thing about that,
man. I agree with you. And I agree we need to improve on defense, obviously. But I don't think our defense is as bad as people initially thought. If you look back at the second half against UCF, we really didn't play that bad. If you look at the Georgia State game, the second half we played great. They just dropped 52 on Arkansas State. And then and then if you look against South Florida, we held them to 17. They put up 30-something on Temple. And then obviously the defensive performance against Navy was the best defensive performance we've ever had against Navy, with the exception of, I don't even remember, it might even have been better than the 2011 performance, which was a win. But the defense performance might have been better this past weekend.
Well, and Kyle, the thing that I was talking to Bubba earlier this week, our whole team is so young. So our defense, it's going to be week by week. We're going to continue to get better and better, which is exciting because, we've got all these guys that are freshmen and sophomores. So, even though it's, we're not sitting at the record we want, things are going to be improving and getting better.
The great thing about, Jay, the great thing about us is the very fact that we're young, just like basketball is the same way. We're young. And as Coach Dooley always talks about, he wants to stay old. Same thing with Mike Houston. We want to stay old. And the way that we do that is by getting this extra year. There's some challenges financially and with scholarships and all that. But at the same time, the one thing that we've desperately needed across the board has been, some positions were stout, but we needed certainly when it comes to depth. And the depth now this gives us a chance to grow this year. I'm very excited about. I know our good friend, former wide receiver of the Pat Dyer, Terry Gallagher, always talks about this is a really long spring football. This really helps us this year by some of the things that are going on by adding an extra year of eligibility.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it's managed, not only by East Carolina, but by everybody across the board. We can't afford, obviously they're going to have to expand the scholarship limit, but we can't afford to have 100 some guys on scholarship, not right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that's handled going forward. And go ahead, Jay.
No, I was just going to ask, have they made an announcement? I was actually going to ask that question. Have they made any determination when they're going to do that?
No,
they're going to have to do that.
They're going to have to, though, because you can't say everybody gets an extra year of eligibility and not expand the scholarship limit, because you got coaches out there still recruiting, and you still have to bring in guys.
Yeah.
You can't tell the high school seniors, hey, everybody wait a year. So I mean, you're going to have to expand scholarship limits. I don't know how they're going to do that. That's a good question, but it hasn't been addressed yet, to my knowledge, and it's going to have to be. I don't know. That's a really good question, and maybe we need to get somebody on from the NCAA and ask them about it, Dave. Bubba.
You know what's going to be interesting too. Well, I mean, obviously that'll affect what coaches decide to do, but if you're a true freshman this year, you could play this whole year, then next year playing 4 games, and then be a redshirt freshman in 2 years. So if coaches have the ability, if they have if they have a contract or they feel like they're safe, I mean, they can get all these guys just a redshirt twice, and by the time they're seniors, they're going to be like 25-year-old seniors.
Yeah, you take Harris. You take Harris.
Yeah, Rasheed Harris
starting this year. Let's say 3 games in next year he gets injured. Well, he can still redshirt next year and come back as a redshirt freshman the following year.
Hey, it sells. Hey, whatever works, man. Whatever works, especially. And we're going to keep working on this. Rajay Harris, for everybody that's joining us. Rajay Harris, he had that yesterday.
I'm just calling him Harris. I'm just calling him Harris from now on. I'm not, because I'm going to say
it's very
Raji.
easy.
I'm going to say Raji.
And I think it's Rajay,
Rajay?
more so than
Rajay.
No, J as in J,
like Jay.
Rajay.
Yeah, but instead of J is J, like
Rajay.
Rajay.
Yeah.
Harris.
That's what it sounded like to me hearing him pronounce it himself.
I'm calling him Harris.
But you can call him Jason Sunhalter. Jason Halter.
Jason Halter at gmail.com.
Yes. Yeah, he's just, I'm calling him Harris. That's his last name.
I'm with you, Kyle. I'm calling him Harris too, or 47.
There you go.
Call him 47, the star running back.
Well, hey, you know what?
But getting back to what you guys were talking about, I know that came up last night with David Glenn, I guess it was. Just as far as, in addition, above and beyond those 85 scholarships, in good times when everything's going well for East Carolina, I'm trying to fund 100 scholarships or something is going to be extremely hard, much less right now.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't think we. Well, I'm just going to put it out there. We won't do it unless we get a huge spike in Pirate Club memberships and donations. And God, by the way, I want to point this out for everybody. A lot of people did what I did and deferred their tickets to next year. So the money you spent this year is going to go to your tickets for next year. So if you did that like I did, give a bigger Pirate Club donation in January, because that's what I'm going to do. Since I'm not going to have to buy tickets for next year, I'm just going to donate a little bit more money to the Pirate Club.
No question. And speaking of which, we need a Pirate Club director. Let's get that. And I challenge all of you right now, all the Pirate fans that are not Pirate Club members, go ahead and join. I mean, the great thing about it is nobody's asking you to give, like $1 million or anything. If you give $100, if you give the basic, the lowest level, if every Pirate fan did that, I mean, we are a great team. We are big time school. Even though we have people that don't believe we're big time, we are big time. And so let's start acting like it. If you are really a Pirate fan, put your money where your mouth is and why not go ahead and join it? I mean, it's ridiculous that we have, what is it, 150,000 living alums are way high up there, and we don't have less than 6,000 people? Are you serious? Come on.
Well, it's less
If
than
you buy
6,000.
Netflix,
Yeah.
and all this different stuff, you can afford to be a Pirate Club member. Nobody's asking you to take out a huge loan, but that would be great too if you did. But you need to join the Pirate Club. It's ridiculous that we have people that talk about how they're big Pirate fans, but they don't give to the school. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it is. And if you're not a Pirate Club member, and chances are, if you're not a Pirate Club member, you're probably not listening to this. But yeah, and I think we need to do a better job as a university. To recruit more Pirate Club members, particularly former athletes, and get them involved and in the Pirate Club. And we'll see how that's going to go going forward once things get back to normal, and you ain't furloughing people, and it's hard to hire a new Pirate Club executive director when you're furloughing people and laying people off temporarily and things like that. I mean, it's a weird time right now.
Yeah, but the same thing, that's true in perception, but the reality is, what does a Pirate Club director do? They raise, wait a minute,
Money.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. Perception, it looks really, really bad. Hey, here's your pink slip, but we're hiring this other dude for that. But at the same time, there's enough people out there that could do a really good job. And I'm very frustrated with that situation because Kyle, you brought the point several times, so I'm gonna give you credit. It's not my I agree with you on the point. We went way too long banking on the fact that football was going to be great and that we would make money, and that's how we made our money. We've got to have a whole bunch of revenue streams. We've got to have a title sponsor for the stadium. I'm sorry, I love everybody, the Dowdies, the Ficklins, I love those folks, but we've got to have a title sponsor that will give a lot of money.
What about what about Dave? What about the Pornhub.com stadium?
I don't know about that.
It's a big time sponsor. They make a lot of money.
How much are they going to give?
I don't know. I would imagine they'd give till it hurts. They'd give a lot. I mean, Jay alone probably, as a premium member, he probably spends, how much is a premium membership, Jay?
I don't know how to use the computer, so I don't know.
Okay, all right. Well, you got the smartphone.
It's the same price as Netflix. I'm guessing.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, but that
website.
Yeah, that's something that's very frustrating, though, that we need a title sponsor for the stadium. We need to have different revenue streams. There's no excuse. We're not pointing fingers. We're saying moving forward that you need to have different revenue streams. You can't rely on football to be the only way that you have money coming into the athletic program. That is a bad business model. And Kyle, I tip my hat to you on that one.
Yeah, that was the previous administration's decision, and they that was their whole thing. Well, we got to fire Ruffin McNeil so we can get a big time coach in here and make sure we can pay for this press box. Good move, guys. Yeah. Good move.
Yeah, I said that was going to be a 10-year thing, and we're already into year 5 on that one, as far as trying to recover. And then we had no idea, obviously, with COVID. But, the one thing I will say is I'm sick and tired of COVID being used as an excuse. So we're living through COVID, and people are going to have to find a way. We're going to have to find a way to make it. You can't just say, "Oh, I surrender because of COVID." We've got to find.
I don't think anybody saying that, Dave. But
I don't know. I don't feel. I think if there's ever been a time that we need to have folks to preach hope, we're selling hope right now, and we need people to really believe in us and to sell hope and to come out there. And yes, people are losing jobs, but there's a lot of people right now that are doing well that could step up and give money. And one of the things you mentioned is a good point. I had and we'll talk more later, but I had someone call me from the university about last year. I gave money for a scholarship for local kids and for kids in North Carolina. And that person called me and thanked me. And they said, the reason I'm calling you is because you gave money last year and I wanted to reach out to you and thank you for that. And obviously I'll give another donation. But we need to have more of that. We don't have I guess that's the thing, is the outreach. And there's a number of us that know Pirate graduates that are not giving, that we ourselves can say, hey, buddy, give the $100. Come on, you're making big money. There are a lot of people out there that are not starving, and we're not talking about the Pirate fans that have lost their jobs. We're not talking about them at all. So I want to make that very clear. But there are a lot of people out there that love the Pirates that are making good money, and they could at least give $100, even if that's whether they can give more or not. They could at least give the $10 a month. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I agree with him. The last thing we'll say about this, and I don't know if we have another guest coming on or not, but if not, we need to start wrapping this up. I got other things to do and stuff. But the people that are, if you have the money and you left the Pirate Club because you were mad about the Ruffin McNeil situation, I feel you, brother. I was mad about it too, but it's time to get over it. Jeffrey Comfort's gone. Cecil's gone. Scotty Montgomery's gone. It's time to start giving. It's time to get over that. And if you ain't over it, that's okay. You ain't got to be over it. But all these people are still gone. So time to start giving again. And, some other people who got mad about some other things a couple months ago, get over that and go on and give your Pirate Club donation this coming year. And everybody's needed now more than ever. And
yeah, well, I mean, that's
Jay, Bubba, Jay, Dave, guys, the three of you, you're lovely. But I'm gone, so I will see you guys for the. I know we're not having a Pirate playback. There's no games this weekend, but I'll see you guys on the next broadcast. So y'all take it from here and keep the ship straight and go Pirates.
All right, Kyle, the lovely Kyle from LaGrange Barber there. I guess he's got to take a bubble bath now and drink his wine. So not that there's anything wrong with that, but I know that we have Rich Phillips. We'll get him on in just a minute from the certainly the voice of the SMU Mustangs. We'll have him along with Bubba, and Jay will have him on in just a second. And Jay, I know that I was going to ask you this. I'm putting you on the spot here. But how many people reach out to you as far as the Pirate Club? You're a former athlete, and my understanding is they have a whole section of the Pirate Club where they try to get former athletes to give. Is that something that's been where a regular basis?
Well, so yeah, they do. They'll do whether it's the barbecue in the spring or whether it's letter winners weekend in the fall. They'll do functions. They'll do functions where they try to get everybody together, and then drum up whether that's support and just getting everybody back or contributing to the program. So there's two kind of main times they do that, but obviously they encourage everybody everybody to come back and support the program in any facet they can. So I know a lot of guys love our a lot of former players love our university, and they may not even be in Eastern North Carolina anymore. They may be in different states. But as a program, what we were all talking about, it's so important, especially during these times, to get everybody together and really help the school out, because these are unprecedented times right now. And even before this, we were already having to pay shortage of money and paying a lot of things back.
No question, and that's the thing, Jay, is that we can't wait. I think it's going to be next year when Mike Houston really turns the corner. And there's going to be a lot of experience, and things are starting to. You can see the bright spots this year, but you can't wait till next year or the year after. Be a real Pirate fan and give, even when the Pirates are not doing well. They're getting better, and the program is heading the right direction. We've got the right people, I believe, in the right places now with coaches, administrators, and the whole thing. So please give. And Bubba, if you can put. We'll try to see with our ticker. I think we have one for the Pirate Club. We'll put that number up whenever he can. We're right now, guys, though I know we had an interview we recorded yesterday afternoon with Rich Phillips. He's the play-by-play voice of the SMU Mustangs. And we'll close out the show with him and come back and wrap things up in just a little bit. Let's go to that interview, Bubba, right now. Well, here on the Inside Slant, we look at college football games across the nation. And Bubba, very excited. Our next guest, one of our favorite play-by-play guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge game in the American this week taking place in Dallas. You have the 3-0 Cincinnati Bearcats, ranked 9th in the country, taking on number 16, SMU, 5-0. And right now, to preview that matchup, welcome back in the longtime play-by-play voice of the Mustangs, Rich Phillips. Rich, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Very excited to have a big matchup. I tell you what, for people that don't think the American has good football, what planet are they on? Rich, a big game. I wanted to have you back on because, wow, this is a really, really big game. And that's, I know, the understatement of the century, but certainly a big one coming up. And what are your thoughts going into the game?
Obviously huge. Could have a go a long ways towards deciding which group of 5 school ends up in a New Year's Six bowl. The highest ranked of those schools will be in there. And with, as you guys said, 9th for Cincinnati, the ranking 16th for SMU this week. And believe it or not, Ford Stadium, this is the 21st season that SMU's played there. This is the first time 2 teams have met there that are both ranked in the AP top 25 at the same time. Last year, Temple was only ranked in the coaches poll when they came in to play a ranked SMU team. So first AP top 25 matchup in our stadium history.
Yeah, Rich, taking a look at this matchup, and one of the amazing things to me, as far as SMU is concerned, is what they did down at Tulane. You had Reggie Robertson go down in that victory over Memphis, and then at Tulane you had 3 guys top 100 yards in the passing game, and what a tremendous job by Garrett Riley and Shane Bruchel and everybody there with the Mustangs.
Yeah, Shane, definitely the guy who drives the engine here for SMU. The 100-yard games, Reggie Robertson going down, and so Rasheed Rice, a guy who took over for him last year when he got hurt too, because Reggie was hurt 8 weeks into last year, and Rice, as a freshman, took over his spot. He had the biggest game, but Danny Gray is the one who's moved in to the X position that Robertson plays. Gray probably has the best speed of anybody on the team and put together a big game. And then Tyler Page is a senior, and that was only his second career 100-yard game. And he added a 55-yard pass completion on top of it on a reverse in which he threw from. So a lot of weapons they have on the offensive side.
Rich, what's been the biggest thing that surprised you about SMU on this 5-0 streak so far?
The kicking game, because it flat out lost them the game in Memphis last year, which was their first loss of the season. And it's, here's the thing is, I went 15 years in between games in which I called a game-winning field goal kick in the closing seconds by an SMU kicker. 2005 and then 2020 in the Memphis game when Chris Nagar did it. And now we've done it 2 games in a row for Nagar. So it's definitely a huge change. And it's not just his field goal kicking either. The thing that really killed them in Memphis last year was they couldn't kick off. I mean, they had a kicker who couldn't get it to the end zone. And so they tried a directional kick and pooch kick and did a horrible job of that at times. And with Chris Nagar, more than half of his kickoffs go as touchbacks this year. So he has been an absolute massive turnaround for them in the special teams game. And Sonny Dykes has gone to where he now doesn't fear having to kick. And actually, I think coaches a little bit differently in certain situations like that because he knows he can send the guy out there and he's going to make a kick.
Yeah, Rich, I called the end of that game last week against the Green Wave in New Orleans, like I was telling you before we started recording. And I'll tell you what, Nagar, that 55-yarder that hit the upright, it would have been good from probably 65 or 70.
Yeah, it was like halfway up the right upright when he hit it. Had a little wind at his back, which helped. But, yeah, he's got quite a leg. It's not every day you have a guy that misses 2 field goals in a game and you have no qualms about sending him out there for the game winner. But that's exactly what happened last week for SMU.
Yeah, in addition to Reggie Robertson being out, you also have T.J. McDaniel, who was a significant contributor with the rushing game, which still did well against Tulane. So talk about T.J. McDaniel's absence and then Bentley continuing to perform well.
Yeah, that's where I still think they have a little bit of work to do to figure out what they're doing at running back. Ulysses Bentley, who's a redshirt freshman, pretty much carried almost the entire load last week at running back, and I don't think they want to do that. He had 25 carries in the game. Tyler Levine's a little bit bigger back who they brought in late in the game to kind of make sure they didn't turn it over before the game-winning field goal in overtime. They've got to get a little bit more production from other guys, though, in the backfield. They can't rely on Bentley to carry 25 times a game, and I'm pretty sure they're going to make sure that they spread it around a little bit more here on Saturday night.
When you think of the Cincinnati Bearcats and everything Luke Fickell has built there in Cincinnati, and you really think of the running game, you think of their defense. So how do you see that matchup with SMU's potent, explosive offense going against that Cincinnati Bearcats defense?
And that's where the whole matchup is who's going to win there, because SMU comes into the game top 10 in the country in passing yards and total yards and in scoring on offense. But Cincinnati's pretty much top 10 in most other categories defensively. They've only given up 12 points a game through the first three. One thing that Sonny Dykes said to me this week when I interviewed him for our pregame radio show is that their defense looks like a Big Ten defense. They have size, they have speed, and that's the thing that has made them so solid on the defensive side. They're really good up front. I know they got a great linebacker crew as well, and one of their safeties, by the way, had an 86-yard interception return for a touchdown in overtime 2 years ago to beat SMU. So it's who's going to win out between offense of SMU and the defense of Cincinnati.
And Rich, when you look at their defense, great stats so far, and physically, they look great, and they've always had a good defense since Fickell's been there. But you look at the schedule, and they haven't really faced the type of teams that SMU's faced. What do you think about their talent compared to last year? And then, also just the fact they're going to be playing the best offense they've seen all year.
Obviously, I think they still have great talent on the defensive side, but you bring up a great point about their schedule. I mean, they played Austin Peay, they played Army, and then they played USF. They have 5 interceptions of their 7 on the year in the USF game. Now, if you do want to look a little further, one number I really caught my eye was they held Army to 182 yards rushing, and that was the team leading the nation in rushing at the time and probably will be at the end of the season too. So certainly a great performance they had defensively against Army. The question is, can they replicate it against a high-powered offense like SMU? That's obviously going to be deciding factor in Saturday night's game. Also the fact, too, Cincinnati hadn't played in 3 weeks because they've had more postponements along the way because of COVID-19.
Rich, I was getting ready to mention how much I think of Coach Dykes, but Bubba brought up a great point with Luke Fickell, who's also done a nice job building the program. And my question is, as far as the American, I mean, when you look, including our coach with East Carolina's head coach, Mike Houston, a lot of great coaches in the league, and it's just frustrating that a lot of the Power 5, that they don't consider the American a Power 5 league. When you look at how many great coaches, how many teams are ranked, you look at from top to bottom, I'll argue for the American as a conference every single day from top to bottom is a great league.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is the 3rd league game for SMU this year, and 2 of the 3 opponents have been in the top 25. They beat Memphis a couple weeks ago to knock them out of the rankings. And Memphis, by the way, looked awfully good against Central Florida last weekend. And then, of course, Cincinnati here this Saturday sitting 9th in the rankings. The big key is, will some of these great coaches stay in the league? So far, Luke Fickell's done it. He's an Ohio guy who really seems to like it there at Cincinnati. And likewise, here at SMU, Sonny Dykes is a Texas guy. And he talks about how he was an SMU fan when he was in junior high. And the program put out on Twitter a couple of weeks ago a picture of him and when he was about 12 or 13 years old wearing his SMU Mustang shirt because he was going to go to a game at Texas Tech as an SMU fan. So hopefully some of these coaches can stay here. That's the big key, is keep these quality coaches here so you can keep the programs going the direction they are.
You talked about how much you think the importance in this matchup hinges on the SMU offense against the Cincinnati defense, but let's flip the script and look on the other side of things, just with Cincinnati's offense, which has left a lot to be desired at times this year. They've had their turnover issues. I know specifically that South Florida game, they turned it over 4 times, even though they won 28-7. And so how do you see them with their ground-based attack against the SMU defense?
Definitely not nearly as exciting as we see from the SMU side. I mean, Desmond Ritter's only throwing for 199 yards per game, and Jared Dokes is their leading rusher. He had all but 43 of his rushing yards on the season in the USF game last week. So that's where he really got a big pop. They're definitely going to try to, I think, shorten the game some. I expect to see them be much more deliberate offensively, whereas SMU will go no huddle and hurry it up. And I really think that will be the exact opposite when Cincinnati has the ball. They're going to try to slow things down. They want to make the game shorter, have fewer snaps, fewer possessions, and it'll be probably two completely different styles that we will see based off that.
Rich, question about the defensive backs for Cincinnati going against the wide receivers of SMU. Who do you think has the advantage in that matchup? Because I figure, Cincinnati is going to play rugged defense and try to slow down the receivers at the line of scrimmage to mess up the timing.
Yeah, that's a challenge definitely for SMU, and especially being down a man in Reggie Robertson to see how they match up. I know they haven't had anybody yet who's been able to slow them down this season. Again, only all but one of those games was played with Reggie. Definitely that's a key matchup for SMU, what they can do against that secondary. I know how strong they can be on the back end there, and they only give up 170 passing yards per game. So key matchup there is what can Danny Gray do, stretch in the field, and what can Tyler Page do kind of as a possession guy. And, one guy we really haven't even talked about in the SMU passing game is their tight end, Kylan Granson, had 4 catches last week at Tulane, and Coach Dykes told me today that's going to be huge for them. They need to have a big game out of Granson against this team on Saturday.
Rich, follow up. Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just had a quick question for you, Rich. As far as the Sonny Dykes, we're talking about a great job he's done. We mentioned Luke Fickell. We know the recruiting he's done. How is the recruiting as far as SMU and Dallas? I would imagine that being the story program that SMU is, and now you got the great offense and great team, a top 25 program now. How's the recruiting going for the Mustangs?
Yeah, he has done a tremendous job. First off, capitalizing on the transfer portal. We've talked a lot about Reggie Robertson. He's the guy who Sonny points to as got the ball rolling for them. He's a kid from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex who went to West Virginia originally and then decided to transfer home, got immediately eligible, and we've seen a bunch more that have done that. Obviously, Shane Buechele went to Texas, grad transferred here with 2 years of eligibility left. We've seen a number of guys on the defensive side the past couple of years. This year, they've got a cornerback, Brandon Crossley, who's from the Metroplex, who went to Colorado State last year, transferred home, got eligible immediately. He's had 3 straight games with an interception, including one in overtime against Tulane. They've really capitalized on the transfer portal, and as that's helped build the momentum, we're also seeing kids like Rasheed Rice, who starts at receiver for them as a freshman last year and is now one of their regular 3 this year, who's from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, who decided to stay here right away. They're getting more and more guys that are seeing the opportunity to stay here at home, or even if they're Texas guys, to stay within the state and play here, get an opportunity to probably play right away. And he's really gotten the ball rolling. And the other thing they've really done, too, is they've really marketed the program extremely well. They have a campaign here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex called Born and Raised, and they've done this the last 2 years. They put billboards up in areas of town where their players have come from. Arlington, which is a suburb of Dallas, and there's a Shane Buechele one. Up in Denton, just north of Dallas, there's a billboard for one of their linebackers who starts here, Delano Robinson, and they've really helped them get the community to embrace the program so much better by doing that.
Just a few minutes ago, Rich, I referenced some of the turnover issues Cincinnati's had at times this year. Just in a game like this, it's even more heightened as far as the emphasis on winning the turnover battle. And I know Shane Buechele, we were talking about how great he's been earlier. And I know he had 2 picks that he threw in the game against Texas State, but since then he has not thrown an interception. So I really think that SMU probably has an edge in that regard going into this one. It'll be interesting to see how the turnover battle plays out on Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely Shane's been very good with the ball the whole time he's been here. He only has 2 games where he's thrown multiple interceptions, period, at SMU. Somehow they're both against Texas State. He did it last year as well as in the opener this year. He's done a great job with that. Ulysses Bentley, freshman running back, did fumble in the opener, but he has protected the ball much better since then. And then on the other side, the defense, they've had their moments where they have struggled, but each of the last 2 games, Memphis and the Tulane game, they have created a turnover at the end of the game that led to the win. It was a strip sack for a fumble in the Memphis game that set up the game-winning field goal in the closing seconds of regulation. And then, like I said, Crossley with the interception in the overtime period of Tulane that allowed Nagar to kick the game-winning field goal. So the defense has been making the plays, too, to take the ball away.
Go ahead, Jay.
Rich, so I know the players aren't allowed to look ahead. I know the coaches aren't allowed to look ahead. But hopefully you will look ahead with us.
Sure.
You look at the schedule, and if SMU wins this game, there's a very real chance they could run the table, or at least they'll be favored in every single game the rest of this year. Have you looked at that, and what's your thoughts on that?
Definitely, we've looked at that. I will tell you, though, it's really hard to get past next week, too, because they host Navy next week, and this program has just been dreadful against Navy forever. I mean, I've been here 20 years, and I believe they have one win in that time, and it took Sonny Dykes gambling in overtime 2 years ago, going for 2 on the first possession to win that game. So, you know, we talked about how strong the league is. I mean, try to get past this week first, then it's next week, and then you got a road trip to Temple, and you got Houston still coming up on the schedule. There's a lot of roadblocks there, but beating the team that's ranked 9th in the nation certainly would get you rolling in the right direction for that.
Yeah, and when I look at the schedule, I mean, those are definitely games that you can't slip up on, but they they'd probably be favored. But like even when you look at the Navy team, because East Carolina played them last weekend, they're always going to be disciplined. But like I just don't think they're the same Navy team that they've been in the past. Like I don't think the Temple is probably as strong as they've been in the past. You know, so I just think if they can get through this one, if they stay focused, they've got a good shot.
Agreed. Yeah, I've seen Navy play a couple of times. My gosh, their Tulane game, they were 2 different teams. They were awful in the first half of that game and great in the second half. So definitely they're not as strong as they've been in recent years. You know, the good thing is Houston's going to be a home game, but the trip to Tulsa looks a lot tougher than it did a month ago before they went to Orlando and beat UCF. So definitely the potential is there if you get past Saturday to run the table, but a lot of work to do just to get past Saturday first.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Certainly, Rich. What's the mood of the fans? I guess they expect now with the program that Coach Dykes has built to win every single week, right?
Kind of, I think, yeah, which is totally new. That hadn't been that way in 3 decades, and it's kind of where, you know, another side effect of this pandemic stinks. I mean, back in the spring, they were in line to have a record number of season ticket sales for Ford Stadium in its 21-year history. And then, you know, all this happens, and now they're selling 25%. So there'll be about 7,900 people there on Saturday. Hopefully the students can keep themselves masked up and socially distanced properly so they don't get run out of there like they did the last game when they weren't behaving properly. But, yeah, the fans definitely have caught on board with this team. It stinks we can't get them all and fill the play game like this, but it's a different atmosphere around this team all the way.
Hey, Rich, at least you have 25%. We have 7% here in North Carolina. 7%.
Wow. That's it?
Yes, sir.
Jeez. Well,
3,500.
I am coming up to do that game when we play up there at the end of November.
Yeah, you and 400 people.
Nice.
3,500 people.
Excellent. Can't wait.
Guys, you still there?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay. Rich, thank you so much for coming on the Inside Slant. Good luck, obviously, this week to the Mustangs. I'm excited, actually, to have the Pirates are not playing, so we have the weekend off. We can be college football fans, and we always are, but this case we get to watch a lot of college football this weekend. And thanks so much, as always, for coming on with us.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Great thing for a great interview yesterday afternoon with Rich Phillips. Obviously couldn't make it tonight live with us, but always good to have him. And I tell you what, guys, again, I know I've said it before early in the interview, but I really believe in the American. I think the talent, if you look at the talent from top to bottom in this league, it's a very difficult league. And then you look at a team like East Carolina is getting better, a rich program. rich tradition like we have, and we're rebuilding that. Coach Houston and company, the coaches are, and Tulane is a lot better. You look at Tulsa's better. I mean, there's a whole bunch of teams that are better, and maybe with the exception of maybe you could argue East Carolina, but they have shown bright spots in South Florida. But everybody else is looking good in the 11 teams.
Yeah, and you talk about what's going on around the league. You mentioned Tulsa, and as we referenced earlier, they were winning 21-6 right now. The Bulls have cut it 21-13 mid-third quarter. So we got a ball game down at Raymond James.
Wow, that would be a big one. And then for us next week, I think the Pirates can win it. We'll talk really quick and get out of here. We've had a longer show, but certainly Friday night is great. The Inside Slant. And Jay, what do you think? We'll give you a little preview. What do you think the Pirates have to do to win? And then we'll promo our stuff and get out of here. I don't know if he's still with us, if Jay's still with us or not. But anyway, Bubba, what do you think? Quickly, little preview ahead of time. Also on the road, we got the road win against South Florida. You look at the last game of the season, we didn't play very well that day. Not that Tulsa's a bad team, but what do you think? And then we'll come back to Jay.
Yeah, well, clearly, I mean, this is no secret. I'm going to have to far and away put our best performance of the year on the table on all three phases, or in all three phases, on all three sides of the ball, as Coach Ruff would say. But Tulsa's a heck of a football team. This would be our best win since 2016 against NC State, and maybe even farther back than that.
We have to have Jay to have – Jay, we have to have enough time to get you in and practice. I know you're rehabbing right now, but we got to get you ready.
I got to get in the huddle for a couple plays next week. Yeah, I just think, what we talked about earlier. I really believe in order to win, in this league or any league, you got to run the ball and play defense. And I think our defense is going to continue to get better, but with this newfound running game, I think it's going to complement the defense to shorten up some of these games. Then also just create the balance we need where we're not always having to come from behind. But I agree. I mean, it's going to be one of the toughest games of the year next week. But I just think, our program and our team and our talent that we have, it's going to be on the rise. So I'm excited to see how we perform after the bye week, because bye week's so important for a lot of young players.
Yeah, that's something else I can chime in with, Jay, just as far as you talk about the balance. They're obviously going to be focusing on stopping Raji Harris and see if that passing game can step up. Hopefully Raji will be able to produce like he has the last two games. Sorry, I said Rajay. Toughest thing to break is an old habit. Hey, and there's nobody to blame for that. We were saying it that way because that's what we were told, and that's the way the coaches were saying it. So
yeah, exactly.
But Rajay Harris, if he has the game like he did against USF and Navy, where we can play action a lot more with Holton, and obviously with Holton, his ability to run the football, it should create even more running lanes for Rajay, and I think Holton could have a big night running the football.
Yeah, well, it's amazing because, we say, I say these things like, it's going to create balance, but what does it do for the players out on the field? Like, if I'm running, or if I'm a tight end running a route, and we have a good running game, a linebacker that's supposed to be covering me is going to be focused on the run and take a step in on a play fake. If we don't have a threat of a running game, he's not even going to worry about that. He's just going to focus on the receiver. And that's the same for the DBs and everybody. So not only does it help out the quarterbacks, it helps out the receivers on their routes to get separation when you have that threat of a run. So, I'm excited for his development, but again, it's going to be a offensive line thing, a running game. It's all going to have to come together, but it's going to be a really tough game. And one other point too, just on what we were talking about earlier with the American, the depth of this league is really impressive. I just think to continue to get the notoriety throughout the country, we're going to have SMU or one of these teams kind of run the table to continue to have like a high ranking team in the league.
No question. We have two right now, right, Bubba, in the top 25. So we're averaging usually about three top 25 teams a year. Maybe we can get a couple more would definitely wouldn't hurt the league to have 5. I think that's kind of a magical 5 or 6 would be
Yeah, I mean,
tremendous.
yeah. Right now, you got Cincinnati, of course, is 9th, and then you have SMU 16th.
So you have 2 that are virtually 2 top 15 teams, but certainly it's great to have 2 in the 2 from the league in the top 25, and we'll keep our eyes out for that. Certainly, Bubba, I know we've got some shows coming up. I was going to promote things, and then we'll say goodnight.
Yeah, which shows were you?
Well, we know that we definitely will have a pirate preview next week, and we may have another show, but definitely a pirate preview next week to preview the game, and we'll look at that. And obviously, we'll have that will be probably Tuesday or Wednesday. Well, probably Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll have our normals. We'll have our normal stuff to be determined as far as the guests.
Yeah, and of course, all the game will be Friday night, so we'll have all the post game reaction. Hopefully, we can be talking about a Pirate victory in Tulsa, but we'll see. We'll be living on Tulsa time, like the old song goes, and obviously, we'll have next week we will have the Pirate playback, so we'll have that. Hey, Jay, man, thank you so much for being on the Inside Slant tonight. You're awesome, and keep rehabbing, man. I'm hoping we get you. If it won't be Tulsa, we'll get you in a game or 2 this season.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, y'all are gonna laugh at me. I was riding my bike earlier. Now I got a sauna off of Amazon. It's like a little I guess leather sauna thing where you can sit in it, it heats up. So I'm doing everything I can to rehab to get back. So I'm multitasking right now. I'm on the podcast and I'm rehabbing.
All right, sounds good. Hey, whatever you have to do, man, to get back in the game, that's what it takes.
Thanks, guys.
Exactly.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night, man.
Good night.
All right, want to thank all our great guests. Plus, we'll obviously thank Jay Sunhalter and Kyle from LaGrange Barber, Bubba Rosenbaum. I'm Dave Richmond. You've been watching the Inside Slant right here on the Sports Objective. As always, good night, everybody, and go Pirates.